Pierre Gasly didn't drop names. He didn't expose some scandal or light a match to burn Red Bull's image to the ground. What he did was worse. He hinted. And in Formula One, where silence can be louder than an engine at full throttle, that hint felt like a quiet bomb, one that just might take Yuki Tsunoda down with it. It all started during a seemingly casual media chat. Gasly, who's been through the Red Bull meat grinder himself, sat there calm and polite, but every word he dropped came with a heavy undertone. "I know some stuff that can't be said," he said. And just like that, everyone's attention shifted to Tsunoda. Because if anyone understands what it's like to be the other driver in the Red Bull machine, overshadowed by Verstappen, ignored in strategy meetings, chewed up by the Helmut Marko system, it's Pierre Gasly. What makes this worse is the timing. Tsunoda is deep in the trenches of what might be the most critical stretch of his career. After a shaky promotion to the second Red Bull seat during the Japanese Grand Prix, he's only managed to score 7 points in 12 races. Verstappen? A ridiculous 151, it's not a gap, it's a canyon. And Red Bull doesn't build bridges for struggling drivers. They push them in and look for the next kid to pull out of the academy. Enter Isaac Hajar. This 19-year-old French prodigy is everything Red Bull dreams about. Raw speed, confidence, and just enough mystique to make people curious. He's the kind of name that Helmut Marko keeps in bold on his private whiteboard. And the whispers say Hajar isn't just on the radar, he might already be inked into Red Bull's 2026 plans. Now here's where the storm starts to form. Red Bull insists there's no favoritism, that Verstappen doesn't get a car tailored to him, that all drivers are treated equally, but anyone who's been watching this sport for more than 5 minutes knows that's the PR line. Teams build around winners. And Verstappen is the winner, just like Vettel before him, just like Schumacher at Ferrari. It's how dynasties work. Gasly's words peeled back the curtain just enough to see the uneven playing field. Sometimes you get something to make it work, sometimes you don't. He didn't say Tsunoda was getting sabotaged, but he didn't need to. The implication hung in the air like smoke. And that's the thing. Tsunoda's situation isn't just about performance, it's about timing, politics, and perception. Helmut Marko has a history of cutting drivers fast. Daniil Kvyat, Albon, even Gasly himself, they all got tossed when the numbers didn't add up fast enough. And Tsunoda? He's now standing on that same trapdoor. The team says he's safe for the rest of the season, but Red Bull's version of safe is like being offered a parachute with holes in it. It sounds good until you're airborne. Behind the scenes, Honda, Tsunoda's biggest supporter, is already halfway out the Red Bull door. Their future? Aston Martin. But here's the catch. Aston already has their lineup. Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll are locked in, and Daddy's not kicking Lance out anytime soon, which means the only thing left for Honda to offer Tsunoda is a reserve role, test driver, simulator work, smiling in the background while someone else races. That's not a promotion. It's a death sentence in slow motion, and Tsunoda knows it, Gasly knows it. Everyone in the paddock can feel it. The Red Bull machine keeps moving. It doesn't wait. It doesn't care. If you're not fast enough, not marketable enough, not perfect, you're gone. And right now, Tsunoda's grip on that seat is looking weaker by the day. Isaac Hajar doesn't need to say a word. His presence alone is pressure. He's the new toy Red Bull's engineers are eyeing, the blank slate with limitless potential and zero baggage. There's no controversy surrounding him, no awkward media questions, no history of inconsistent results, just raw speed and youth. A dream combo for a team that thrives on chewing through talent and seeing who survives. That's the danger for Tsunoda. He's not just fighting Verstappen's shadow or the car setup politics. He's fighting a ghost, one that hasn't even arrived yet but already feels like it's standing behind him. The Red Bull Academy has always operated like a factory line. They scout young drivers, fund them, train them, and if they deliver, great. If not, they're tossed aside before they can even blink. It's been that way since day one. Helmut Marko built it to be cold, efficient, and unforgiving. The success stories, Vettel, Verstappen, are used to justify the graveyard of names that came before. Kvyat, Albon, Buemi, Hartley, Gasly. They all walked into the system believing in the dream. and most of them walked out with their confidence shattered. Tsunoda's situation feels eerily similar. He came in with hype, backed by Honda, pushed up the ranks fast, and now finds himself in the most dangerous position a driver can be in, dispensable. Red Bull's statements of support are about as reassuring as a hug from a lawyer. When they say we believe in Yuki, what they mean is we haven't found your replacement yet. What makes it worse is the paddock politics. Teams are locking in their 2026 lineups early, contracts are being extended, negotiations are happening in backrooms, and drivers are quietly staking their claims. But Tsunoda's name? Barely a whisper. Alpine isn't interested, Williams is looking elsewhere, Cadillac's entry plan doesn't have him in the conversation. He's becoming invisible in a sport that punishes invisibility more than failure. And then there's Honda. For years, they've been Yuki's safety net. The unspoken agreement was always clear. Red Bull gives him a seat, Honda brings the engines and the money. But that arrangement dies the moment Honda leaves for Aston Martin. Red Bull's allegiance is to performance, not loyalty. Without Honda's backing, Tsunoda becomes just another underperforming driver in a ruthless system. Aston Martin, meanwhile, has no incentive to make room for him. Alonso's not leaving. Stroll isn't going anywhere unless Lawrence Stroll has a sudden personality transplant. So the best case scenario for Tsunoda is a reserve driver role, an F1 purgatory. Still part of the show, still wearing the suit, still attending the briefings, but never actually racing. Just waiting, hoping, watching, and that's where most careers die. People forget how long Nico Hülkenberg was out before he clawed his way back, or how Stoffel Van Dorn never really did. These roles are pitched as stepping stones, but more often than not, they're trapdoors. Tsunoda's only way out of this spiral is performance. Massive, undeniable, season-saving performance. Not just a few Q3 appearances, not scraping into points. He needs headlines, podiums, a shock win, something that makes Red Bull pause. Because if he doesn't create noise, he'll be drowned out by the buzz around Hajar. And that's the twisted part of it all. It doesn't matter how hard you work in silence. Not here. In Formula One, you scream your worth through results, or you get replaced by someone who hasn't failed yet. That's why Tsunoda's real battle isn't with Verstappen. It's with time, with expectation, with the name written in pencil on the next year's driver lineup, waiting to be inked in. There's a particular kind of silence that follows a driver when the paddock starts counting them out. It's not loud, it's not cruel, it's quiet, almost respectful, like the way people nod at someone on their last lap around the track. That's the silence hanging around Yuki Tsunoda now. The media doesn't grill him as hard. Teammates speak about him in softer tones, and every compliment he gets feels more like a farewell than an endorsement. You're fast, Yuki. You gave it everything. You did your best. But no one wants to hear about best in Formula One. They want proof, trophies, overtakes, lap times that punch through data sheets and turn engineers into believers. That's what Tsunoda is up against. An invisible scoreboard that updates after every race, and right now, it's not in his favor. What makes the whole thing sting even more is how the machine behind the scenes operates. Red Bull doesn't just drop drivers, they phase them out. First, it's the quieter radio messages. Then it's the less favorable strategy calls. Suddenly the upgrades arrive a little slower, the excuses pile up, weather, timing, traffic, until one day, your name disappears from the simulator schedule and no one tells you why. Gasly knows that feeling. He lived it. And his choice to speak vaguely wasn't just diplomacy, it was self-preservation. F1 is filled with people who know too much and say too little. Because the second you break that code of silence, you're not just out of a seat. You're out of the sport. Tsunoda doesn't have that luxury. He's still inside the machine and he's trying to find the emergency exit while it's still open. But where do you run when every other door is already closing? The 2026 grid is shaping up fast. The top teams are locked. The midfield has its own pipeline of junior drivers. And the backmarkers? They want sponsorship money, experience, or both. Tsunoda's best assets, his raw pace, and Honda's backing, are fading into irrelevance. There's also the Isaac Hajar factor. He's the kind of driver who wins headlines just by existing. Every good lap he clocks in junior formulas turns into a Twitter thread. Every test he does becomes a YouTube breakdown. The hype around him isn't logical, it's emotional. And emotional hype is deadly because it makes teams dream. Red Bull isn't looking at Tsunoda wondering if he can be great. They're looking at Hajar and imagining he already is. The irony? Hajar might not even deliver. He could crash out of his first few races, he could fold under pressure, but in this system, potential is more valuable than proof. The promise of a star is always shinier than the slow grind of a competent underdog. And that's what Tsunoda's become, a driver who's done everything asked, but never enough to change the narrative. His only shot now is chaos, a string of unexpected podiums, a shocking drive in the rain, Verstappen's car failing while Yuki brings home the points, something dramatic enough to force Red Bull to reconsider a decision they've probably already made. Because at this point, performance isn't about climbing the ladder, it's about survival. And if that miracle doesn't happen, then the reserve role at Aston Martin becomes real. A courtesy gesture from Honda, a way to keep him on the books without actually keeping him in the sport. He'll still wear the team gear, he'll still get invited to the race weekends, but his race days will be over. And when the music stops in Formula One, there's rarely a second chair waiting.